Hello, Professor.
Hello.
I was trying to contact you because I didn't get any of your emails about the class, and I think it's
Okay.
because of the email.
But you obviously got the Zoom access codes, right?
No, I asked one of my classmates for it.
Were you somebody who added the class or were you already enrolled?
I was already enrolled, but I think the she sent me one of the messages, and I can see that my email is wrong in there.
Okay. I will double check that.
Yeah,
What's your last name?
it's a Calderon.
Okay. Victor?
Yes.
Okay. I will be sure to double check that. Thank you, Victor.
Yeah, it has a double L. It's supposed to be L and number one after that.
Um, oh, yeah, I see it. I see it. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's because of that.
I'll change it.
Okay, thank you so much.
hmm
Hello.
Hello there.
Hi.
I'm sorry if I look a little tired and ragged. I normally work nights and I'm normally asleep right now.
It's all good.
So, yeah, if I look like I'm a little zombified, you'll know why. All right. I am going to give this a couple of minutes. There's obviously a few people still trying to join in, and then we'll get started. Um, I'm going to basically go over the class and the syllabus. I'm not going to present anything that is lecturable, testable, okay? So you're basically today is going to be more information about the class than anything else. Okay. And I want to apologize for that little disaster I initiated yesterday when I accidentally sent you guys the video from another class. It, as you might imagine, it created quite a bit of confusion.
Yeah, I got a little freaked out because I thought I missed the first exam. I'm like, there's only
You,
three.
you weren't alone, Kyle.
Mhm.
You
Like I
weren't
wasn't even
alone.
at the class and they had a test already.
I know. I'm
Yeah.
like, dang, they say summer school goes fast. I didn't know it goes this fast.
Yeah, it's like warp speed.
hmm
Yeah, that class is over with next week. It was only 3 weeks and 2 days.
mm I'm in my other class is for summer school, is a child development one, and it's only 4 weeks. So I think we're like past halfway already done. It ends this month at some point.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I think they're going to open up classrooms in the fall.
Yeah, I have some. I have four classes, and I think like two of them are in class, and two of them are still online, something like that.
Yeah, for me personally, this was the tipping point. I'm pretty close to retirement anyway, and then this happened, and I thought, nah, I'm tired of it. So
hmm
you guys are quite literally the very last class I'm ever teaching.
Wow.
Been doing this for about 30 years.
Well, good luck with future endeavors and all that.
Yeah, it's been fun. I have many more good memories than I do bad, and even the bad ones are silly.
Yeah, I had like towards the beginning of this whole online class thing, I had a class for introduction to teaching, because I want to be a teacher, whatever, right? And we had a teacher, our professor. She was also member, I think even the superintendent of some like school board in Tulare or something. So just imagining how much stress she had. And I got towards the end of the semester where she wasn't even showing up for meetings she was creating. And it got to the point where our very last like Zoom meeting for the semester, we were supposed to ask like crucial questions. She didn't show up, and then she sent an email later saying she fell asleep in her chair. So I was like, wow, I didn't learn anything from this class. So what I did is
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, that's too bad for you. All the years I've been doing this, I've never missed, I've been late for class on a number of occasions, but I've never missed a class, never. And for the last 25 out of these 30 years, I'm also a practicing ER physician.
Wow.
And so I work nights. And so sometimes when you see me on the video and I look like hell, it's probably because I was up the previous night, that's all. But I've been managing those two professions now for about 25 years. And I've never missed a class.
That's crazy.
Never. And and I don't even consider myself a workaholic. Teaching is something I truly love to do. It's one of those professions for me that I just can't believe they pay me for it. And like I said, I have way more positive memories than I do anything negative. And even, like I said, even the negative ones were downright silly.
So you're saying that you're a doctor in the evenings at a hospital?
Yes.
That's awesome. That's a completely different field than this class.
Well, the two stories are kind of interwoven with each other. You see, I was a graduate student for what I'm doing right now, and I was fortunate enough because at the time I wasn't married, didn't have a family, and my only obligation was to me. And I was able to get through college and grad school without any student loans. And so, but my bank account was getting a little thin towards the end of my graduate work. I had about 3 semesters to go, and it was looking like I was going to have to get a job somewhere. So I went to work at a hospital, working as nothing more than like a gopher. I was, taking lab specimens to the lab. I was, carrying paperwork from one floor to the next. That's all I was doing. Anyway, that was my introduction to healthcare. And I actually see some common ground in the two professions because when it comes to healthcare, everybody, the weakest link in the healthcare system is education. Properly educating your patients on their diagnosis and then their treatment and why are you doing this. And it's like every time I diagnose a brand new diabetic, I'll give you a local example because it's common here in the Central Valley. Unfortunately, diabetes is common amongst the Hispanic population in the Central Valley. And oftentimes it runs in families, and the person is oftentimes not diagnosed until they're in their 30s. So what this means is that from birth until they're, say, 35 years of age, they're living their life just like anybody, but they're also developing a pattern of eating. And unfortunately, for a lot of traditional Hispanic families, when mom is the absolute best cook in the world, it's heavy in carbohydrates. The Hispanic diet is very heavy in carbohydrates. And now all of a sudden, you're telling this person, you can't eat that anymore. That's like trying to quit meth. And so probably for about the first 5 years after their diagnoses, they have a lot of lapses, where they think to themselves, oh, this one thing isn't going to hurt me. And next thing you know, they're in the ER and we're shoving fluids and giving them insulin and all that stuff. And it's not a pleasant experience for them. It takes them a couple of times to come around to realize I have to change my eating habits. And so education is a big problem in healthcare. And so me as a teacher, I see a lot of common ground between the two professions.
Are you going to retire from both professions?
I plan on retiring from healthcare probably at the end of 22. The reason is as you can imagine, COVID created quite a need for people. So I was actually hoping to retire last year, but then COVID came along and the hospitals were desperate for all kinds, not just doctors, but the entire staff. They were desperate for all of them because, as you can imagine, the patient population skyrocketed.
I didn't mean the education part. I meant geography and then being a doctor. That's what I meant, the two. My last comment saying completely different. That's what I was saying. Not the teaching. Yeah, no, not the teaching part. Yeah, no, I think teaching and patient care goes hand in hand. No, I meant geography and being a doctor. That's what I meant. My last comment.
Well, actually, to tell you the truth, Veronica, this is actually my third profession. When I was in my 20s and 30s, I was an electronic engineer. And
that is amazing. You must be a very intelligent man then.
Well, Veronica, here, I want to be absolutely honest with you. No, classes didn't always come easy to me. I was like you guys in so many ways. I was up on Sunday nights cramming just like you guys do. And I showed up on the day of the test stressed out just like you guys do. And so I struggled. And, I probably had, in all honesty, when I finally finished all my bachelor's work, I probably had maybe a 3.4, 3.5 GPA. I wasn't the A student. I didn't. The only reason I cranked it up a notch is when you enter grad school, everybody, you're not allowed to get anything less than a B. If you get a C, you go up before a review board that you might possibly get kicked out of your graduate program. You have to get all A's and B's. So I had to crank it up a notch. And so, but it's something I think you and everybody else in this class are perfectly capable of. I don't think I'm special in that regard. I think all of you can do this. It's just a matter of, I realize you guys have your own lives and, it's, I'm just being hypothetical here. But yeah, you're all capable of doing it. I don't think I'm anybody special in that regard.
Where do you find time to sleep?
Well, to tell you the truth, it's a combination of age and getting used to habit. You notice how your grandparents don't sleep as much as they used to? My grandparents used to stay up until 2, 3, 4 in the morning sometimes before they actually fell asleep. And even then they only slept for like 2 or 3 hours. But I've gotten used to the pattern over the years because I've been doing it for so long. And that is I do not remember the last time I slept more than 6 hours. Typically for me, it's 4 to 5 hours at most, and then I'm up again. So I get home about 9 o'clock in the morning, and then this class starts at 1. But I'm not complaining. I am not complaining. I chose to do this, and if there's any fault in it, it's me. I'm the one who chose to inflict that on me, not the job. And as far as teaching is concerned, there's some of you in here who are considering a teaching career. And I highly encourage you, if this is worth anything to you for my professional experience here, in terms of jobs, you will get hired here in the Valley. That's a given. But certain jobs are tougher to get than others. If you plan on teaching kindergarten through 3rd grade, that's the toughest gig to get. Everybody wants to teach kindergarten through 3rd grade. And you want to know why that is? Because the little love munchkins don't have an ego yet. All they want to do is make you happy. I want to be the chalk monitor. I want to be the door monitor. I want to be the milk monitor. I want to be the ball monitor. Teachers love that. The toughest grades are obviously middle school, but you see between the ages or grades of 4 through 6, that's when the personalities begin to emerge. You know, your leaders and your followers amongst this group of kids. And then by the time you get to middle school, throw in that leaders and followers thing and throw in a mix of hormones. Oh yeah. Middle schools will hire you in a heartbeat because the turnover rate is pretty high amongst the teachers. And then of course, high school, the trick with high school is that we all know that teenagers think they know the answers to everything in the world. They know everything. You can't explain anything to them. However, as a mature adult, you have to understand their egos really are that fragile, and it wouldn't take much to burst that little bubble. So it's a delicate dance at the high school level between offending their ego and at the same time trying to keep them grounded. The reason I chose to stay in grad school and finish and be able to teach at this particular level, and please, I'm not directing this to anyone personally in this class, it's a bit of a joke with me. The reason I chose to teach at this level is because I don't have to care about you. How's that for cynicism? No, what I mean by that is we're all adults here. It's, you know, you paid your hard-earned money to get into these classes. And so if you choose to blow the opportunity by not paying attention or not showing up for class as an adult, that's your business. It's none of my business. The only thing I would ask students over the years is that, you know, if you choose to disappear for 3 or 4 weeks and then suddenly show up again and you want to ask me for help, I'm likely to direct you to another student. I'm not going to waste my time on that person, but if another student wants to help them, then I'm all for encouraging that. So what I'll do is hey, anybody want to share notes with this person? And that's usually how I used to conduct it. Also, as new teachers, regardless of the grade you are working in, if it's anything like K through 12, keep this in the back of your mind. And I don't mean this in a negative way. When you walk in that classroom, you are God. You set the boundaries. The trick is enforcing them. That's where the God thing comes in, enforcing the rules. And the best teachers are ones that can do that. Yeah. And the reason I'm not and I know some of you aren't either, I'm not happy with this internet teaching thing. Like most people, I much prefer to be in a classroom with you. I prefer more one-on-one interaction with students. I like encouraging student interaction in the classroom, and it's a little more difficult to do under these conditions. So I miss the classroom for that reason. I truly did enjoy interacting with students, and as teachers, that's going to affect you in a positive way. It's going to affect you. You're going to be absolutely surprised when 20 years down the road, some total stranger walks up to you and says, "You were my 5th grade teacher." It'll bring a tear to your eye that they actually remembered you. Okay, let me get the recording started and we'll get going on the class.
Recording in progress.
Okay, everybody, I sent out an email to everybody stating that I wasn't going to drop anybody. So the reason I'm not going to bother with the roll sheet right now is because there's actually about 42 of you enrolled in this class. Right now, there's 22 of you here. So obviously, we're missing half the total class, and I'm assuming it's because they're either at work or they have some parenting issues, which I'm perfectly okay working with. So no, I'm not going to go over the roll sheet, Those of you who want to add, many of you have already emailed me for an ad code and I have sent it to you. Before we leave today, if there's anyone else that needs an ad code before we finish today, ask me and I'll give you ad code right here over the class Zoom meeting, okay? Now, as far as the class goes, again, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday from 1 to 3. The reason I don't like those hours of 1 to 3 any more than you do, but I'm already conducting a Zoom meeting between 10 o'clock and noon, okay? So that's what I had to take into account. The typical meeting will probably only go about an hour, maybe a few minutes past that, but that's what a typical Zoom meeting with you guys would be like, okay? You do not have any homework or home assignments that you need to turn into me. Your grade will be based on the 3 exams that you're going to take from me, okay? Each exam is 100 points. There's 3 of them, so the total semester is worth 300 points. And the grade scale is a pretty straightforward 90, 80, 70, 60%, okay? At times when I send you the handouts, it's going to contain examples of what I'm talking about in lecture, but I'm going to show it to you in the form of problem solving. So I don't want you to be concerned with, oh my gosh, he sent me this math problem, and does that mean we have homework to do? No, I'm telling you right now, you're not doing homework for me and you're not turning in any assignments to me other than the answer sheets for the exam, okay? The problem solving is merely to illustrate to you and show you what it is I'm talking about, because after all, everybody, this is a science class. So I'm not sure where each of you stand in your education in regards to science. So if I either talk too fast, or if you're just, you're having a hard time understanding something, please be, please speak up. I have no problems stopping the lecture and explaining to you, okay? The material that is going to be covered in this class, the first exam is going to be pretty much introductory material. It's going to introduce you to the concepts of navigation regarding latitude and longitude, because as it relates to this class, it's important to know precisely where you are at, because it matters about what kind of weather you experience, okay? Your physical location on this earth really matters, okay? We also get into, this is the first exam material here, we're getting into our relationship with the sun and how it drives the weather on this planet, exactly how it does that. And then exam 2 deals with the weather process on top of the earth, how weather is created and what are the results of this weather. Because what you are going to discover is that depending on the weather in a given area, the kind of vegetation that grows naturally in that location. It's typically based on average annual temperatures and average annual precipitation values. In other words, how much does it rain or snow in that area? That determines what grows naturally in that area. So here in the Great Central Valley, specifically the city of Visalia, oaks are not natural to the valley floor. The only reason they're here and they survive is because we water them and we protect them from predators. They're not natural to the valley floor. Neither are the pine trees. The only reason they're here is because humans brought them down from the mountains. The only kind of vegetation that this weather here in the valley is capable of supporting is dull, boring tule grass. That's it. We here in the Central Valley only get 11 inches of rain a year. Why are we so agriculturally productive then? It has nothing to do with water. It has to do with the soil. As luck would have it, everybody, and this material is covered in this class, the creation of the Great Central Valley is the product of the San Andreas Fault Line. It basically squeezed the Central Valley into existence. Where did all of this really good ag soil come from? The weathering process is going to rinse all the soil off the top of the Sierra Nevadas, and it's going to fill in that valley. The valley floor that you are currently standing on is 2,000 feet above the actual valley floor. That's how much dirt has been filled in over the last 2 million years. This is why the Central Valley is so agriculturally productive. The soil, but we have a desert climate. Precisely because we do not have a high rainfall value, the water does not rinse the nutrients out of the soil. They stay there, and they stay close to the surface. This is why ag is so productive here, okay? The only issue we have is water. And so in the case of California, every small creek and river or stream that comes out of the Sierra Nevada mountains, the state of California has built one kind or another of a dam across that stream for the purposes of agriculture. And as a joke, everybody, the state of California has to be the single most damned state in the union. Seriously. But anyway, we're productive precisely because of the soil, not the rain. And this class covers the production of how it rains on your head. Exam number 3, everyone. And by the way, it's merely exam number 3. The final is not comprehensive. It is, the final exam is just exam number 3, okay? Exam number 3 happens, we go over all of the processes that occur within the earth. The weathering processes take place on top of the earth. These processes take place inside the earth, and what I'm talking about is tectonic activity or earthquakes and volcanic activity. And the end result is all of these earthquakes and this volcanic activity end up creating new earth material every time a volcano erupts, okay? But the weathering process wears it down. So there's this balance going on between all of those processes inside the earth versus all of those processes on top of the earth. And they interact with each other to create all the unique ecosystems that you see spread across the planet. And so you're going to discover, everybody, that there is a pattern to all of this naturally occurring phenomenon. There is a pattern, and it has to do with many different things, but it has to do with our relationship with our moon, our relationship with the sun, the tilt at which we are currently leaning, our distance from the sun. So without any, you have to consider all of these factors according to theory. Well, it's not even theory, everybody, it's a fact. If we did not have the moon, we would be rotating a lot faster than we currently are. Right now, it takes Earth 24 hours to rotate once on its axis. We call that a day. If you remove the moon from its orbit around the Earth rotates once every 8 hours. That means there's only 4 hours of daylight and 4 hours of night. Think about how that would impact photosynthesis on this planet. It would completely disrupt the food chain, and humans would end up starving to death. And we as a species wouldn't be here anymore, just because we took the moon away. You already know the moon is responsible for tides. There's a lot of theories out there in anthropology that think the first form of life that formed on this planet, and I'm talking about bacteria, happened a long time ago, billions of years ago, and they believe that the moon was responsible for this because of the tides that the moon creates on the Earth here. Here's a metaphor to compare to what I'm talking about, everybody. Let's suppose you're trying to cook something on the stove, and let's say you're trying to make some kind of chicken soup or something, and you're reading the instructions in the cookbook and the ingredients, and you're putting all the ingredients in the pot. Whatever that is, you're just putting them all in the pot, and then you turn the flame on. But keep in mind, you're merely putting the ingredients in the pot. You are not stirring them. And then you're turning on the flame. Is it going to come out the way you anticipated? No. So metaphorically speaking, think of it this way. The tides that the moon was creating was the spoon in the pot. It's mixing all of these chemicals in our oceans. And then you have some of the earliest forms of bacteria. So the presence of the moon is really, really important to the weather on this planet. It's also holding Earth steady at a 23.5-degree tilt. That's important, everybody, because the fact that we have 4 seasons is directly related to our tilt. If you take 90 and divide it by 23.5 degrees, you come up with approximately 4. And so we have 4 seasons. If the Earth were only tilted at 45 degrees, there would only be 2 seasons, okay? So the fact that we're at 23.5 and the fact that we are steady at 23.5 is because of the presence of the moon. It's keeping us from wobbling around like a child's top on a table. So our tilt is fairly consistent over the years. And it's that consistency that is required for the evolution of life. You have to have thousands and thousands and thousands of years of winter, summer, fall, spring, winter, summer, fall, spring, winter, summer, fall, spring. That has to go on and repeat itself year after year for even up to millions of years for life to be able to develop and flourish. Because if for whatever reason the climate is, nice and it's perfect for life, and then all of a sudden 1,000 years later there's some kind of nuclear winter, well, there goes life. So in order to develop, the patterns on this planet have to be fairly consistent, and they are, and they're still there today, and this is some of the topics we're going to cover in this class. The Earth rotates on its axis toward the east. So the sun appears to be coming up over the horizon in the east, and then it sets in the west. Just the mere fact that our planet rotates in an easterly direction is something that sounds really simple. However, it has an absolutely huge impact on where various ecosystems are located on this planet. You see, we're covered mostly in water. So when we rotate, imagine, if you will, you were able to put a basketball on the tip of your finger and spin it really fast. Because we're imagining this, also imagine that the ball that you are spinning on your finger is magically surrounded by water. As you spin that ball, it's going to turn in one direction, and the water is going to appear to move in the opposite direction. So even though we spin towards the east, ocean currents at the equator are going to head off in a westerly direction. So water is going to leave the coast of Africa and it's going to head towards South America. Now, because it's water, once it hits the South American coastline, it's going to diverge or split. Part of that current is going to be diverted in a northward direction towards Florida. The other part is going to be deflected in a southward direction. So what this translates to, everybody, is that ocean currents in the northern hemisphere are going to rotate clockwise. Ocean currents in the south are going to rotate counterclockwise. And now think about this. You have warm equatorial water. This is really warm water. It's going to hit the coast of South America and it's going to be deflected northward towards Florida. What's the climate like in Florida? It's pretty hot and humid, isn't it? Because the water off the coast of Florida is coming up from the equator. The water is going to continue its way up the coast of eastern United States. It's going to head towards Greenland, where it's going to return back down in a southward direction back towards the equator. However, now it's cold water because it gave up all its heat energy as it was moving northward. Now it's heading south from Greenland and it's going to pass by England and the west coast of France. It's cold water. You don't see tropical vegetation in England or France, do you? As a matter of fact, what is the French agricultural system most famous for? It's most famous for its grapes. Now think about this. You have cold ocean current passing off the west coast of France. The wind in that region of the world moves in a westerly direction. So the air is coming from the Atlantic Ocean and it's passing over France. It's passing over the cold coastal water. Cold water does not evaporate. So the air is not able to pick up a tremendous amount of moisture. And so France doesn't get a whole lot of rain. They get about as much as the Great Central Valley, maybe 12, 14 inches. The Central Valley gets 11. Well, think about where the Central Valley is located. You have warm equatorial water that's going to leave the coast of Ecuador and it's going to head towards the Asian continent where it will split. Part of it will rotate northward and it will go up past the Philippines, nice and warm, tropical climate. And as it continues north, it's going to continue to lose heat energy as it goes up till finally it passes by Japan and passes underneath the Aleutian Islands of Alaska and then comes down the west coast of California where it's cold water and the wind over California moves in the same direction as France. It's coming from the ocean towards the dry land and it's passing over cold water that it can't evaporate. So the Central Valley only gets 11 inches of rain, and we specialize in tree crops and vine crops. What does France specialize in? Tree crops and vine crops. Johannesburg, South Africa. tree crops and vine crops. Perth, Australia, tree crops and vine crops. Yes, Kyle.
I was wondering, Liz, you said that it passes from Alaska down to California. Then why is there a reason for why the Washington seems to always be known as the rainy state, even though it's like towards above us with Oregon and whatnot?
It has to do with the direction of the wind, not the water itself. Okay? But in terms of California, it's coming almost directly off the Pacific Ocean. And because the land mass up around Washington is not, the coastline is not a straight line. Plus you have the Cascade Mountain Range, which having a huge mountain range in the way of your wind pattern is like putting big, huge rocks in a small stream. You're gonna create all this turbulence. And so it creates a completely different weather pattern in that part of the United States.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So you're illustrating a point of this class. You know, each area of the planet is unique based on its geography and its location. So the first exam material has to do with the basics about location, relationship, our orbit. Something that I'm going to emphasize is the angle of sunlight that you receive that determines the seasons, not the change in distance from the sun. We do not go around the sun in a perfect circle. We have a slightly elliptical orbit, and by the fact that we go around in an ellipse, that means at some point we're physically further away, and at another point we're actually physically closer to the sun. Well, as sheer dumb coincidence would have it, we are physically closest to the sun on January 3rd. And we are physically farthest from the sun on July 3rd. Go figure. In regards to actual mileage, the difference between closest and farthest is 3 million miles, but it's nothing on a galactic scale. That distance means absolutely nothing. It's the angle at which you receive sunlight that determines your change in seasons, okay? You're also going to find out that not the entire planet experiences 4 seasons. The only place on Earth that gets 4 seasons is the area located directly between the equator and the North Pole. And where do you think you're at right now? Directly between the equator and the North Pole. You get up towards the North Pole, they only have 2 seasons up there. What do you suppose they might be? It's either the dark half of the year or the light half of the year. If you live directly on the equator, you only know 2 seasons. It's either the wet half of the year or the dry half of the year. So the fact that you live here in the middle, you get 4 seasons. Okay? It's all about angle. It's all about angle. I mean, remember this when you went out to the beach and your parents refused to let you go outside at noon? Why? Because that's when the sun is highest in the sky. Especially if you look like me and Kyle. Yes, you had a question, Kyle?
Yeah, I was just wondering with is that the reason why there's that weird phenomenon? I don't know if it's a phenomenon, but in Alaska, I don't know if it's just a city, a part of Alaska, where they say it's like the daylight is very short, and there's it becomes nighttime a lot longer and sooner.
Well, part of Alaska is right on the Arctic Circle. And so the further north you go, the shorter your days get. So the people in Seattle, like in the wintertime here in Central Valley, the shortest day of the year, you guys have all lived here most of your life, if not all of it, and you know that in winter here, it gets dark. It's completely dark by 5 in the afternoon. Okay, if you live in Seattle, that takes place at about 3:30. And the further north you go, the shorter it is. So if you go up to Alaska, your day might only be 4 hours, and then you've got the rest of the day, 20 hours of night. Years ago, when I was working as an electronic engineer for a company, I spent a little bit of time down off the coast of Antarctica, and it may sound cool right now to be in an environment that is daylight 24 hours a day, but trust me, it is not fun. You know, there's going to come a very short period of time after you're down there for like 2 or 3 days, and you're going to get tired of looking at your watch when it says it's 10:30 at night out and you look outside and the sun is bright and sunny. You're like, oh, this is so wrong on so many levels, because it messes with your biorhythms. And so in the bad old days, people that worked down there used to fight that with alcohol, but they don't do that anymore. You know, there's all kinds of various tricks to get you to go to sleep. You know, a popular one is melatonin is a popular medication used to sleep. It's a naturally occurring hormone in your body. It makes you sleepy. And those eye shades, those things will worth their weight in gold. But anyway, you here in the middle are the only, and the same thing's true in the South. The people that live between the equator and the South Pole, likewise, 4 seasons, okay? So, and there's a pattern, you know, based on ocean currents that I just explained to you, clockwise in the north, counterclockwise in the south. It creates similar weather patterns all around the planet. And it not only creates natural vegetation, it also heavily influences what kind of agriculture you practice in that given area. And in our case, it's the tree crops and vine crops is what we specialize in. And so to give you some idea of how big the ag industry is here in the Central Valley, there's currently about 220 independent nations on planet Earth, and California's economy alone is probably number 5 or 6. Whoever is governor of California is basically the 5th most powerful person on earth. There's a humble thought. California has a lot of things going for it economically in regards to geography. If you think about it, we already know we got the soil, we produce the food. We also happen to live right next door to the world's largest freeway. It's called the Pacific Ocean. The most efficient way to get goods from point A to point B is not planes, trains, and automobiles, it's ocean-going container ships. And on the other side of that freeway, everybody, is nearly half of humanity. This is why we are so anxious to open up trade doors with Asia. If you can reach even so much as 10% of that population, you and the next 10 generations of your family are sitting fat, dumb, and happy. So that's why we're so anxious to establish equitable trade agreements with Asia. California is ideally suited to benefit from this. We have a lot of on-ramps and off-ramps here in the state of California. Ships can pull into San Diego, Long Beach, Oakland, Portland, Oregon, Seattle. These are all basically on-ramps and off-ramps, is what they are for shipping and transport. And so, you know, California, imagine this for those of you in this room who have family in Latin America somewhere. There's going to come a time here very soon where we are going to elect a Hispanic governor to California. We are the 5th most powerful economy on planet Earth, and we are going to elect a Hispanic politician to the office of governor. How is that going to affect our relationship with the rest of Latin America? Interesting, isn't it? Because as we already know, more than half of the state is now Hispanic. So it wouldn't surprise me if this happens soon. But anyway, so this is the class. We're going to meet Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Like I said, I'll keep it to about an hour. After the class is over with, it takes Zoom about an hour or 2 to compile the recording for me to have it available to you. But you don't have to ask for it, everybody. I will automatically send it to you in a group to the entire class. Okay, so if you have to work or if you've got child care issues, don't worry, it will be automatically sent to you. Okay? Does anybody have any questions so far about the class, about the syllabus, about how we're going to run things for the rest of the semester at all?
Is the exam going to be timed?
Pardon, Horace? I didn't hear you.
Is the exam going to be a timed exam?
Typically, on the day of the exam, I will send it out to you in a PDF file on, say, the class. We normally have a meeting at, say, 1 p.m. I will typically send the exam out to you at 9 a.m. that morning. And I will again, I'm trying to accommodate the parents and the workers in the classroom here. I will expect the answer sheet to be returned to me 24 hours later, the next day at 9 a.m.
Okay, so that answers my question.
Okay.
So there's no time, there's no stopwatch on it. It's just turn it back in.
Well, if you want to call 24 hours a stopwatch.
Okay, I got you.
But I'm also expecting the fact that you got 24 hours to look over all your notes to find the answers. There better darn well be a lot of 90s in this exam. Okay, does anybody have any questions?
Yes, I have a question.
If not, I will see you guys tomorrow at 1 p.m. and there will be some note taking, okay?
Hello?
I think
Hello?
Jack had
I have a
one.
question.
See you guys.
I think Jack had a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Yes.
Recording
so-
stopped.
So we sent to you the answer sheet to your email.
Yeah, you're going to return the answer sheet to, it's going to be separate from the exam. And you're going to return the answer sheet to me in the form of a PDF file.
You have office hours?
Well, I have access to my email 24/7.
Okay, thank you so much.
The only reason I may not answer you in the late afternoon or evening hours is obviously because I'm at the hospital. But I'm aware of the fact that you sent me a message. I just may not be able to get back to you until about 3 in the morning. So it's not that I'm ignoring you, it's just my schedule, but I will answer your emails when you send them.
I have a question.
Yes.
So how do we know when these assignments are due?
Well, basically, the only assignments you have to turn into me are the 3 exam answer sheets. And I'm going to send them to you on the day of the exam. I'm going to send them to you at 9 a.m. and I want them returned to me by the next day at 9 a.m. So what is it you have to turn into me? Those 3 answer sheets.
Okay, thank you.
I have one more question. Is you say in the syllabus recommend text? Is recommended or we need to
It's a recommended, it's not mandatory for this class. The reason I even put that up there because many of you are social science majors and you are going to end up transferring to another university to complete your bachelor's degree. And this particular atlas is nice. It's one of those books you want to have handy around your bedroom when you go to write that paper because it's full of up-to-date and pretty useful statistical information on everything from corn production, oil production, how many miles of bridges, all kinds of in this atlas. And it's for every single country on the planet. And so for those of you who are social science majors, you're going to end up writing some papers and you're going to need to back it up with numbers. This book is a good source for that.
Will Canvas be utilized at all with the class?
No, everything's going to be on Zoom. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Oh, wow. I see your collection back there.
Thank you.
You, did you paint those yourself?
Some of them are. The others are bought.
Okay, you've been collecting a long time, haven't you? I used to be the same with baseball memorabilia. But once modern baseball adopted free agency, I started to lose interest in the game. Yeah, it's I find it to me personally, it's almost a bit of a social commentary on American society when a man who can throw a little white ball a little better than you or I can is going to make more money in one season than the next 10 generations of your family. there's no social justice in the world.
Yeah.
But who is your team for baseball when you're collecting?
I'm originally from Chicago, and I started my baseball career being a Cub fan, but you can imagine the turning point for me, and this is the team I rooted most for. I was in the military at the time. I was in the Navy, and I happened to be in New York City in October of 1977. And the Yankees were playing the Dodgers in the World Series. And I went to Times Square in New York City because I'm a tourist. But Times Square has a USO office in it. And a USO office is kind of like, it's like a social club for active duty military people. If you go into this building and show your military ID, you can eat for free. They have anything you want to eat or drink. And they also have, depending on what city they're located in my case, it's New York City. I was sitting there eating dinner, and the new technology at the time were big screen TVs. And so they had one, and I wanted to go watch the World Series because it was being played right there in New York. And so I wanted to get a free meal. I wanted to watch the ball game, maybe drink a few beers, and that was it. While I'm sitting there eating, the volunteer who is working at the USO is some little 75-year-old lady. And in the middle of our meal, another shipmate of mine and I were sitting there eating, getting ready to watch the game. The game was like 2 hours away, it was going to start. She walked up to us and she asked us if we liked baseball. And we both said, well, yeah, that's why we're here. We're going to watch the game. And she asked us, would you two like to go to the game? And she gave us box seats to the 1977 World Series. And I have been a dedicated Yankee fan ever since.
That is awesome.
Yep.
I went to junior high and high school with Dallas Braden.
Oh, okay.
For the A's, yeah. Junior high and high school, I went to school with him. So I was just curious.
The thing what I've learned to appreciate about it is I truly enjoy the emotional drama of a good, intense game. I really do. You know, and you can YouTube this. My favorite World Series moment, oh my God, Hollywood could not write a better script. It's the 1988 World Series between the Dodgers and the Oakland A's, and it's game 2. It's the 9th inning, and the Dodgers are down 3-1. There's 2 men on. Tommy Lasorda has no choice. He's run out of reserves. There's only 1 man left that he can call to come to the bat. And it happens to Kirk Gibson. And Kirk Gibson was one of the A players on the team. However, he's injured. His knees are badly injured. And he volunteers to come out of the dugout and take an at-bat. And he looks like he needs a wheelchair to get to home plate. That's how bad his knees are. And he's up against the best underhand pitcher in baseball, Dennis Eckersley. This man throws 100-mile-an-hour sliders. And Kirk Gibson takes a 3-2 count in the 9th inning. And he takes the 3-2 pitch and promptly parks it over the right field fence. And as he's running around the bases, his knees are hurting him so bad. He's in obvious pain as he's running around the bases, and he can barely make it to home plate. It is drama. It is just so wonderful. I love that stuff. And Kirk Gibson has been, ever since then, has been known as Captain Kirk. That's my favorite series moment. I've seen quite a few of them over the years, but that's my favorite. Because I've been to a total of 4 different World Series games and probably half a dozen playoff games. Enjoyed every single one of them. So about 5 years ago, I started giving up my collection, and I literally started giving it away to kids. So I'm down to a few precious mementos that I can't part with. Yes, I have a 1953 Mickey Mantle baseball card.
Oh, that's awesome.
I have home plate to the 1985 World Series. I have an original Brooklyn Dodger jersey. So I was pretty diehard. I would go to spring training and get autographs and take pictures and maybe even get a ball. Yeah, I was pretty diehard because if you wore your military uniform, you get into ballparks for free. And so I would show up in my uniform and I would carry a book bag with me with a pair of shorts and a t-shirt, and I would just go right into the men's room and change clothes after I got in the gate. And they were the cheap seats, but nonetheless I got in the stadium. So by the time I was discharged out of the military, I probably had been to just about every major league ballpark in the country.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, diehard.
I didn't know that they did that. My husband was in the military for 6 years. So I didn't know that they.
Yeah, you just it's annoying sometimes because it might be a really hot day and you got to put the monkey suit on. But once you get past the gate, you just run to the bathroom and change clothes. Yeah. So I have some wonderful experiences. I started losing interest in it because of free agency because I grew up in the late 50s and 1960s, and when I was a Cub fan, the Cub lineup in 1960 was pretty much the same as it was in 1970. It was the same guy playing second base, first base, all that kind of stuff. And so I knew these guys very, very intimately. I knew all their statistics and I knew, who did what and all this kind of stuff. And then free agency comes along and now it's all about the almighty dollar. And what it's come down to today, and I feel bad for kids today, I really do, because when I watch a professional sport today, whether it's football, basketball, or baseball, it doesn't matter to me. As good as LeBron James is at basketball, probably him and Michael Jordan are probably the 2 greatest in the last 50 years. Well, anyway, even though their talent is worth watching, I can't help but think that every time I see a professional sport played, I'm not rooting for the team so much as I'm rooting for the corporation that owns them.
Exactly. That's how I feel too.
That's what's a little disturbing to me. I miss that intimacy between the fan and the team. And you just don't have that anymore. And so, I don't know. I guess I'm just like a lot of old people. I'm stuck in the past. I'm a 20th century guy. What can I say?
I know this is gonna make me sound like an even bigger nerd because you can see the collection behind me, but that's why I'd never been able to really get into esports, which is becoming a new thing now, and it's because there's not a single team that actually sticks together. How it works in esports is they hire somebody to play for the team for like 1 season and then they fire them, but they fire them on equal terms because that's their contract.
You're exactly right. And to me personally, it's hard to build loyalty when that happens. It really is, and I understand completely what you're saying. Yeah. And that's too bad. I mean, I understand it, good for this guy. He's trying to get the most money out of it and, good for him. But as far as being a fan goes, it's disappointing to me. I mean, Bryce Harper got paid $300 million to leave the Washington Nationals. And I mean, you and I and everybody in this class that we're in right now, if you added up all our incomes over the entire course of every one of our lives, we wouldn't even come close to that much money. And so it's a little hard for me to feel sorry for these guys when they have a bad season or when they get fired or if there's some kind of controversy of some kind. I'm sorry, I'm just not feeling it. So I miss that intimacy between fan and team, whatever that was. And so I hate to admit this, but about the only time I will sit and focus on a baseball game now is the World Series. That's it. I don't watch the regular season anymore. And the only reason I watch the series is because, again, obviously the drama is a little more intense. And so I do enjoy that. I really do. I think people who are avid sports fans, they may not realize it, but that's what they like, is that emotional up and down, that adrenaline rush when their team is winning. And as much as they hate it, the disappointment of losing is part of that as well. And that's the roller coaster ride that a lot of people enjoy, and I was one of them. I was actually at Candlestick Park in 1981 when Joe Montana threw the pass that put the Niners in the Super Bowl, and I saw 50,000 people spontaneously break out and cry when that happened because they were so happy. I love that stuff. I mean, that's why we're sports fans.
So you like the emotional aspect of the
tremendously. You know, the thrill of winning and the agony of defeat, you know, you got to take the good with the bad, but that's what it's all about, you know, because you got to admit when you're rooting for, if they're having, let's say they win the big game, you got to admit, at least for that day, you're on an emotional high.
Mm-hmm. I've never been totally into sports, but or understand it completely. But yeah, it just
the details of the sports obviously change. I don't know, maybe your husband's a particular baseball and football fan, and you may not understand all the details. But what is obvious to you that he's obviously either getting really excited about something or he's getting really pissed off about something. One or the other.
Yeah, I remember when I was younger, I wouldn't go visit my grandfather because he was a Minnesota Vikings fan, and his whole mood would change I'd be like, okay, they lost, I can't go visit him for a couple of days.
Yeah.
Well, my name is still mud amongst some of my family members for an incident at a baseball game that happened in 1984. I was in San Diego at the time, and the Padres had made the playoffs, and they were playing the Cubs. Now, I'm not a Cub fan. I'm a Yankee fan. But it's the Cubs, and I still have quite a bit of family living in the Chicago area. So I went to the game, and I'm standing in line at Jack Murphy Stadium, and I'm obviously the only person in line wearing a Cub hat. And the local sports broadcaster saw me standing because obviously I stuck out like a sore thumb. So he walks over to me and starts interviewing me. Now, keep in mind, this is going to be game 3 of a best of 3 out of 5 playoff series, and the Cubs have won the first 2 games. So if the Padres are going to stay in it, they got to win the next 3. The broadcaster comes up to me and interviews me, and later that night, the Cubs went on to lose 3 straight. My family has never forgiven me for that. They think it was my fault.
Yeah, that's why
my parents were both. My mother, she was a diehard Chicago Bear fan because that's where she grew up, and so she even went to high school with 2 of the players on the team from the 1960s. She had gone to high school with some of these guys, and so she knew them personally, and so she was a diehard Bear fan. I never got into the Bears. I became a Niner fan in 1969, and I watched the Niners lose 4 NFC championship games in the 1970s, 2 of them to Minnesota and 2 of them to Dallas. And then in 1981, January of 81, is when they played Dallas again in the NFC Championship game. So obviously the entire crowd is thinking, oh, please don't let this be a repeat. And then Joe Montana throws that famous pass. and 50,000 people spontaneously started crying. Like I said, you just, that's like raw emotion to me. And, you know, everybody's hugging each other, everybody's shaking hands, and, you know, and everybody's telling each other, I knew it, we were gonna do it.
Yeah, that's why, sorry.
And then I've always been active in local, like, city softball leagues and things like that, but I had fun. It was a good time while it lasted. So.
I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so the very first email you had sent us on our email, you had attached exam one outline. Did you need that back or?
No, it's yours to keep, Lydia. I am going to start on the actual material tomorrow, and I will use that as a guide. That'll be the subjects I'm going to talk about.
Okay, so that one's just for us to keep, the one that
Yes,
was attached with the syllabus?
It's for you to keep, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
So what you discussed today in the beginning of the class isn't.
It's not testable, Veronica.
Okay.
I won't start all that. You may hear me repeat a few things, but overall what I said today, no, it's not showing up on the test.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna wait for the video and then take notes again, but okay.
Well, like I said, it just gives you an idea of the kind of material that I'm going to be presenting in class. And some of the details may not make sense to you. I mean, without, to be honest, and this means no disrespect to you or anybody else in the class, but if you don't really study or think about this, who would have guessed that the moon is responsible for the weather on the planet?
Exactly, that's true. Yep.
So there's a lot of things. I mean, one of the ways I like to illustrate this is that now that we are now that our technology related to telescopes is powerful enough that we're actually seeing planets around other stars, okay? There's that renewed hope that someday we're gonna find another planet just like Earth that we're gonna be able to colonize, right? You've heard that before.
Yeah.
Well, the problem with that is, everybody, is not just the travel itself. You already know, I'm sure it's common knowledge amongst everybody how difficult it is to travel amongst the stars. We do not have that technology yet, but maybe someday we will. Here's the problem. Suppose we find another planet that has oxygen and water on it. Whatever this planet is, wherever it is, it had better damn well come really close to imitating the conditions here on this Earth. It's got to be within like 99% of everything that's going on here. And let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. Let's suppose you find another planet that has oceans on it, so it's got water. It's close enough to its sun that it's able to keep the water liquid, not freeze it, not vaporize it, keep it liquid. So the relationship to the sun is just right. But let's just say that the planet is bigger than Earth. Earth is 8,000 miles across. I don't know, make this planet 15,000 miles across, nearly twice the size of the Earth. And you might say to yourself, wow, that's cool. We got all this extra land. We can put all kinds of people there. Well, the planet also has, because of its mass and its size, has a different set of gravitational fields around it. And that sounds really nerdy to you, but however, it's really important to life. Suppose the gravity on everything's the exact same, except the gravity is now twice what it is here on Earth. So instead of weighing 120 pounds, you now weigh 240 pounds.
Yeah.
How tall do you think the trees would get on a planet like that? Big tall redwoods here grow to be 60, 70, 80 feet. On that planet, they probably only grow to be 30 feet tall. And so what I'm getting at is that there's a lot of variables there that have to very closely mimic what is happening here, because we as a species are very specifically suited to the chemical contents in this atmosphere, because there's more than just oxygen and nitrogen in our atmosphere. There's dozens of other chemicals. And so it all has to be close to the same. It can't, that the chemicals, there has to be a certain amount of water on the planet. There even has to be volcanic activity on the planet. in order for humans to completely survive. That is how delicate the relationship is between humans and the environment here on this earth. We are very specifically adapted to this environment. And to go someplace else, it had better come pretty darn close. Otherwise, we as the species, in our ability to adapt to this new environment, are probably not going to end up looking like humans do today.
No, they won't.
Isn't that kind of creepy thinking? But yes. Yeah. Think about this. When you look up in the night sky, to give you some idea of the atmosphere that you're living in right now, when you look up at the night sky, don't the stars look like they're blinking to you? Well, you're sitting on the surface of the earth, and our atmosphere that is over your head is 70 miles thick. You are a bottom dweller. You're at the bottom of an ocean of air that consists of all the various chemicals. Your body has adapted to the pressures here on the surface of the earth and the chemical content of the atmosphere itself. You've adapted to it over the course of evolution. Okay, and when you look up through the night sky, as a child, when you were playing in the backyard pool, did you ever at any time, you're on the shallow end of the pool, you're playing games, but you're lying on your back in the pool in the shallow end, and you open your eyes and you're trying to look upward through the water, and everything appears to be a little blurry and it looks like it's moving because the water is moving. That is the same thing as you looking up at the stars at the night sky. You are looking through 70 miles of air. And that's why our telescopes that are in outer space take so much more better pictures, because they don't have an atmosphere to look through. So they take much, much, much better pictures. Okay. I will see everybody tomorrow at 1 p.m.
Can I ask you a quick question about when you send out the exams, and so you send out the question, and then on a different page we just answer A.
In one email message, I will send the class both 2 PDF files. One of them will be the test, one of them will be the answer sheet.
Okay. So then we just fill out the answer. Do we print it, or
You just fill out the answer sheet and return the answer sheet to me. That's it.
Awesome. Okay.
Okay. Bye-bye.
And then, sorry, real quick. So this class is about, was it 8 weeks long? So
I believe it goes to like July 25th.
no, so not quite 8 weeks. So like 6
No.
So maybe like every 2 weeks we have a exam then?
Something like that. I'm looking at your roll sheet right now. What's printed on the roll sheet is the 22nd of July. So July 22 is when the class is officially over with.
Okay.
And so that's going to average, probably about every 10 days or so, 10 or 11 days, an exam.
Okay, awesome.
Uh-huh.
Okay, thank you so much, and see you tomorrow.
Bye-bye. Anybody else have any questions?
I have a question. For the exams, are they going to be written in, or do you do multiple choice? And usually, how many questions are on?
The answer sheet's going to have some numbered blank spots next to them that'll correspond to the number of the question that you're answering. And so the exam is made up mostly of multiple choice, true, false, and matching. So the answer that you're writing in the blank spot is merely the letter, not the entire answer itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. See you tomorrow.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.